Hello everyone and welcome back to a very different episode of Queensland Abandoned Mines. Ebenezer with you as always, and today we're coming from the hometown, my hometown of Gosford. So just up front, for all of our longer term and regular viewers and subscribers of the channel, this is indeed a one-off. No, the channel is not diversifying into urban exploring. We were actually on the Central Coast with all of our filming equipment, and I'm sure a few of the long-term viewers have picked up on a bit of a running joke within the channel, especially when it comes to our interpretation of geology around my running joke of sandstone. Now, I've never really shared that, but the reason being is that I actually grew up exploring sandstone quarries of Gosford. Most of the longer-term Gosford residents would know that there is indeed an abandoned sandstone quarry which we refer to as Kappa's Gully Quarry. I believe it was abandoned in the 1930s, and the little bit of research I've only recently looked up on, I believe it was used as a firing range since. Now, the original content that we're on the Central Coast to produce whilst we're on holiday was actually going to be a bit of a quarry origin stories, and we had 4 filming locations picked out. One was going to be the Kappa's Gully Quarry. The second one was going to be the much larger, I guess you'd call it the main John Whiteway Quarry, which sits around about a further 120 metres in altitude up on the hill from the old Kappa's Gully Quarry, which is pretty much now just lost by jungle. The third filming location was going to be the Wonderbine Quarry, but we could see that it's still privately owned. And the last little bit of research we did, I could actually see that it was still an active quarry, and the only way that they could get the stone across the tracks to the eastern part of the tracks, when New South Wales Rail was actually doing track works. We also never found out who still owned the quarry and the quarry lease, so we didn't actually have time to properly recon that. All of that planning was aborted anyway, because within an hour or so of me arriving in Gosford with my family, I could hear some very large construction noises coming from the top of John Whiteway, and this is now what's happening up there. They are indeed actually re-quarrying, and they're going to be putting in some monstrous high-rises. So as soon as I saw that, I abandoned the initial idea for the content that we're on the Central Coast to film. Also wanted to, just up front, just fix some misinformation. We are not the first to produce or present a video on abandonments of Gosford. I don't think many of the people that have recorded and presented videos so far actually are indeed Gosford residents. The vast majority of those are saying that Gosford Market Town and all of the other buildings actually closed because of COVID. That is not at all factual. My memories of growing up on the Central Coast, I was very aware, even as a really young kid, that there was very clearly 2 competing shopping centres in Gosford, being Gosford Imperial Centre and Gosford Market Town. And the pressures that were added when Lend-Lease grew Erina Fair, which is really only about 20 k's to the east of both of these Gosford shopping centres. Lend-Lease grew Erina Fair at a rapid rate. I still recall when it was just the original tiny regional mall type, which I believe is the original part was where the now closed Target is. I think Rebels and H&M have just moved in there. But Erina expanded rapidly. They added boardwalks, they added a Hoyt's movie theatre, and that really was the nail in the coffin for Gosford. And you're going to see in this video that the Imperial Centre is still doing okay. It looks to have about 60% occupancy. They still have a Woolies as an anchor. It's probably the only Woolworths that I can remember that actually has a full-time security guard station. So Gosford is still a pretty wild place, and always has been, as I'll talk about later in the video. So I hope that gives you some context as to why we're filming a abandoned building documentary. Now, some may ask why this building. Well, I think the building that we're exploring really is a catalyst for what's happening on the coast. It's in fact not one building, it's 2. The building that sits on Man Street that's further to the south is a beautiful old building. Now, initially it's dressed in sandstone that was donated free of charge from Gosford Quarries. I believe its early origins are 1950s, mid-1950s, and I believe its original tenant was the Gosford Masonic Centre. The council needed to take over the building sometime in the 80s, and that's because they needed to move out of their much smaller building while they had their new building erected the other side of Man Street. Now, I mentioned the building that we're exploring that you're seeing right here in this video is actually 2 buildings. Now, the building that's bolted on to the north of this one is indeed one of the ugliest buildings probably ever built on the Central Coast. I'll forego naming the architect because at heart Gosford is still a small town and they may still have family there. But the architect that built this part of the building is also the same architect that was responsible for designing the now abandoned Gosford Council chambers, which I believe are 13 or 14 real eyesore of a pebblecrete beast of a building that sits perched up over the eastern side of Man Street. Now the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because the building that was in the place of the currently abandoned Gosford Council chambers was apparently a beautiful Art Deco building with origins around the 1920s. Now that building I can't even find any photos of. That was ripped down pretty much overnight without much of a public warning or any public outcry. A lot of things like that have happened in Gosford since, and a lot of things will continue to happen in Gosford unless the residents really do something about it other than just jumping on Facebook. And this building that was apparently very unique and Art Deco in design was just completely obliterated overnight to make way for the, let's all agree, just absolutely abhorrent looking Gosford Council chambers. So what you're seeing is a recent explorer of myself. Also just a shout out, you'll see that I've got a colleague with me today. It is indeed one of my lifelong friends from the Central Coast, Dougie. Now Dougie's a great guy to go exploring with. He's a retired Muay Thai instructor from San Remo. I think a few coasties would actually know of the legend of Dougie. He's actually the guy that broke both his legs in a Muay Thai competition and actually still went on to win it in the mid-90s. But needless to say, he's a great guy to take urban exploring. He's a man mountain, he's about 7 foot tall, and really these buildings, as soon as you step foot in them, which we completely condone, we'll talk more about that later at the end of the video. We implore you to stay on until the conclusion of this video. It really doesn't seem to have too many fears of these kind of environments. Now in terms of this sort of environment, it's our first ever urban exploration, and boy, what a few days it was. Our mine exploring channel and our crew members are exposed to some pretty hairy locations. We sometimes have to wade through flooded mine workings. We normally share abandoned mine workings with billions of bugs. We are sometimes in there with large population of bats, and just in general, if you're not exposed to it and you're not used to it, things that will make your skin crawl. That really didn't compare to how uneasy I felt when we were inside Gosford Market Town, which you will see some short clips of later in the video. We only managed to explore the one floor of that building. Looking down over the elevators at the bottom floor was just like something from another world. It was one of the scariest looking setups we have ever seen. It actually smelt like petrol, so we're very worried about whether there had recently been a fire or there was about to be one lit. And I think Market Town is another good talking point in terms of what happened to Gosford, because there was never really much need for a second shopping centre completely adjacent Imperial Centre, and the poor old management at Market Town, Gosford Market Town, they did everything they could to get in a really good anchor. My recollection of Gosford Market Town are really fond. I actually remember going to the surf store that was tucked up under the escalators there, and all of my yearly formals, or my girlfriend's formals, I'd have to go and get measured up for a trendy suit, get ready to hit the town. But I also could see, even as a teenager, that they were doing everything they can to get an anchor in. I vividly remember the anchor that was in there, possibly last, I may be wrong, but it was Big Fresh. That was one of the most expensive retail food fit outs that I think I've ever seen. I'm not exaggerating when I said they went all out. There was animatronics that was sitting amongst chicken coops in there. You could tell that centre management were working with these guys to do whatever they could to lure people out of the Gosford Imperial Centre, possibly away from Erina Fair, and back to the most recently built shopping centre of Gosford. I believe it was actually only constructed in the 1980s. Now, just a note on exploring abandoned buildings. I'm not too sure how the urbexes go about it, whether you look at the building construction plans or the schematics. I know one thing with exploring abandoned mines, we look at level plans, and there's almost nothing that catches us by surprise in terms of any unexpected shafts or winzes or stopes that we might not know about when we're walking through these abandoned mines. One thing I can guarantee though, that starting an urban exploration on one of the top floors is not a good idea. Being a builder myself, means you can't really see the way that the floors are constructed, and it also means if you encounter someone, you have to jump out the window, which is almost what happened here. So I think I'll just pause the video here, and I'm rewinding to only 3 nights prior to this main exploration, when after about 500 beers, my friend and I decided it'd be a good idea to trek into Gosford and explore it. Abandoned buildings are dangerous enough as it is, without the added effects of alcohol, and you'll see how the exploration panned out. It did not go to plan.
Let's look for a stairwell. All we're going to do is look for a stairwell. Stairwell. Yeah, I found it. Found it. Let's do it. Shit, no, don't go to your right. Oh, shit. Yeah, I'm going. Just don't go to your right. Oh, yeah, we're in the big building. All right, this is what I've been told to be wary of. Nah.
There's big holes over here.
Yeah. I'm going for it. Oh shit, no, stop, Bo. Stop, shit. Go back. Go back. Shit. Don't just walk out onto the floor, man.
Oh, I've been drinking, I'll be fine.
Shit, Bo, noise. We got company. Come behind me. Bo, come behind me.
Cool, we got a gun.
Come behind me. Bo, go to the stairs. I'm fucking serious. Move. Go. Move, and move. Move. That's it. Keep going. Don't stop. Yeah. Fuck, this is not the way we came in. Fuck, what's that noise? What's that noise? Fuck. What was that, man? No, what was that noise upstairs?
Somebody?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get out of here, man.
Alright, and here we go back with the exploration of the old Masonic Centre / Brisbane Water Council building. You can see here that my mate and I, Dougie, are about to head up the stairs, and we're actually looking for the original clock tower. Now, rather alarmingly, when you look at the Preservation Act that's put on the facade of this building and the clock tower, part of the information available does actually state that they pulled the sandstone covering off this beautiful old Gosford clock tower that would have been part of the original building in 1955. And they did say that they decided to store it on site. And you'll get a glimpse of it just here in just a second. Dougie and I are just checking out this really dodgy ladder. It also looks like the roof to the left of us is asbestos fibre. There's the clock tower. So if that is indeed true and they decided to pull off the sandstone covering and store it on site, that is 100% definitely in someone's lounge room, or it's been hocked at Gosford cash converters. Now check out this for a view. The irony of all of the development at Gosford, I visit Gosford either once or twice a year, and I hear all of these wild development stories from Mum and Dad. Probably the one development story that sounds like it's going to go ahead and is indeed, I think, partially funded already, are the apartments that are going to go up right on the waterfront. So you can see this view here of the beautiful waterfront of Gosford that locals have been sharing for over 150 years. That could soon be a view at the arse end of an apartment block that's going to be perched right up on the Brisbane water itself. And we're heading up the old the stairs here, and this is actually probably one of my favourite parts of the exploration. It's part of our favourite part of our mine exploration is actually identifying and dating some of the old equipment. Now check this out. This is a lifting hoist made by Johns and Waygood. Now that company's got a lot of history. In fact, the company was founded in 1892 and I think ran till about 1957, and actually made a lot of their money making munitions for both the World Wars. So originally the firm was Peter Johns Engineering, and then they took over the Australian company known as Waygood Limited. And I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, if we've got any lift buffs out there, but I believe Waygood, Johns and Waygood eventually ended up joining with Otis lifts. If you're ever in an Otis lift these days, that lift will have heritage all the way back to 1892, to the original firm of Johns and Waygood. Alright, so we're starting to make our way down the stairs. There's Dougie and Eb still on our adventures. You could probably see to that ladder outside, after we'd looked at the beautiful views of Gosford, we could see it was only bolted in with one solitary bolt. That's where the video ended abruptly. And now, you've already seen the footage of our exploration from 3 nights earlier, and you can see how things can go wrong in abandoned buildings. Now check this out. Dougie fears no man. And we get down to some of the middle floors now because we're actually making our way down and out of the building. And I'll pinpoint when we hear the first sound, which was on the same level as we're on. And you can see Dougie actually walks towards the sound. It's coming up just here. I'll pinpoint right where the sound happens. Right there. And you'll see me promptly shit myself and run towards the staircase. Big Dougie walks towards the noise, but here's the second noise. Now the second noise we actually heard from directly above our heads, and check out Dougie's face. That was our message to get the hell out of there. There we go. And again, let's go. There's definitely people living there, guys. You gotta probably appreciate that it is actually someone's house. If someone comes in your house at any time of day with a video camera and high-powered lights, what are you gonna do? You're going to hide, possibly. You're going to probably get some weapons together to try and defend yourself, most likely. Alright, and also just in the nighttime footage you would have realised that I'm not by myself. A few of you coasties probably know this guy. We call him Bo, that's actually his initials. It's actually Barry O'Dwyer's brother of Aaron O'Dwyer's. Now, again, we're talking a lot of old coasty folklores and legends. There's a story getting around about Barry O'Dwyer's that drunk 100 beers. It was actually him and his brother, that split 100 beers at Club Troppo in the mid-1990s. And then both of them walked all the way to Newcastle. Now, some people say they got a cab. The two brothers are actually adamant that they walked all the way to Newcastle. It took about 6 hours and they wore out a pair of shoes. So probably a few of you coasties have heard that legend as well. Now, getting back to a little bit more content of Gosford itself, I did throw out a line early in the video that Gosford, from my recollection at least, has always been a fairly violent place. Now, growing up in Gosford, I had a lot of friends and family members that ran businesses within Gosford on Man Street, a few that overlook Kibble Park, and there's a lot of stories to tell, but one of the stories that I'll tell is actually one from my own memories, probably one of my youngest memories of Gosford as a child. I think I was 5 or 6 years old. I was having a milkshake with my mum upstairs. Now, it's normally at my favourite cafe, which is called the Camelot Cafe, but we opted to go for one in the Imperial Centre, which was perched just above the escalators. And my mum grabbed me and pulled me away because we were sitting quite close to the glass handrail, and I could hear some screaming and all kinds of scary sounding events coming downstairs at the bottom of the elevator. Now, I only got a glimpse of what was going on down there, but I remember seeing a man looking straight up with just dead eyes looking up at the roof with both his hands on the ground, just completely covered in blood. And I do believe it must have been some sort of knife attack. That still sticks with me. That was a pretty violent scene. This video is not a history of Gosford, but Gosford was actually founded in 1788. And like a lot of the settlements in early New South Wales time was primarily just convicts. What makes Gosford a little bit unique is when you fast forward all the way to 1824, when the population had reached 100, it was still 50%, actually at least 50% of the settlement at that time was still convicts. And I want you to picture the old pubs and the bars way back in the day, and you can probably paint a picture that it was always a pretty rowdy and happening place, even way back in 1825. And as of the census in 2016, there are actually still 3,500 people listed as living in Gosford, the CBD of Gosford. And from my point of view, it mostly looks like people that just want to commute to the Greater Sydney area and maybe save on rent and mortgages. Now, here we are coming through one of the bottom levels of the building. We definitely have no need to go upstairs after hearing multiple noise and confirming that there's definitely people living in there. Just a quick note on this video too, in terms of the buildings themselves, there is no private property signs whatsoever. There is absolutely no intention to trespass or to prosecute trespass signage erected, and we definitely did not create a new way into these buildings. There's several ways to get in, and again, I want you guys to listen all the way to the end of the video because that has now changed. I'm not too sure who's monitoring these buildings. We definitely got the impression, Dougie and I, that they were just blowing in the wind. I'm just going to leave you right at the end of this video with a 10-second clip, and I think you guys can find out what happened. It wasn't good. I don't know whether there's a silent alarms or there's people surveying the site, but they are definitely not just there blowing in the wind. They are definitely being monitored by 24-hour security. And to my knowledge, all of the entrances into these buildings have since been sealed up. Now, right there was a great shot where you can really clearly see the two buildings. That building there is the Colorbond sheeted one, which has been bolted on to the north, and you can see the original brick building. And again, that was first erected in 1957, with the southern edition coming around 1975. This is pretty cool. You can actually still see, because the last known tenant of this building was indeed the Brisbane Water City Council. I believe you can still see some of their reserved parking signs still bolted to the wall. Now, we can't really see the allure or the appeal of abandoned buildings explorations. We don't really have a passion for it. But the one thing that I was really looking forward to, there goes Dougie, just unleashing some wrath on a boxing bag there on the floor. Watch out for your legs, Dougie. One of the appeals that we can definitely see of urban exploring is the urban decay. This is a cracking shot, and we actually could see another YouTube video, and that was inspiration for us to go in and try and capture this same view. You can see these vines running all the way up the stairwell of the original building that was built in the 1950s. You're going to see me truck up these stairs and put on one of my high-powered torches, and then we encounter noise number 3. You'll see me abruptly bolt. I think it was coming from at the top of the stairs. There's a fair chance it could have been animals, but the first two definitely were not. They were someone sending off some warning signals that they didn't want us in there. With abandoned buildings, guys, too, there's very hazardous materials in there. We did see a lot of syringes. People are definitely using it to inject drugs in there. And then obviously you can see the very clear dangers in terms of all the rotten floors. Here's a really cool shot looking at the outside of the building. And what we're going to do now is just do a little bit of a pan around, because the site that we're on right here is actually the original Central Coast Leagues Club. That's the new one. And right there is the original Central Coast Leagues, which a lot of you would later be known as the Central Coast Youth Club. I remember so many amazing State League basketball games that we used to watch. My sister used to play basketball at the Central Coast Youth Club, and I learnt to box downstairs. And where I'm pointing to now is actually the original Froggys building, which I spent a lot of my youth. In fact, most birthdays were at Froggys, and some of the best memories I've got growing up are birthday parties from myself and friends and family at Froggys. It was such a magical place, and that was ripped down around 2017, I believe. We've got one really cool shot here of these vines growing back over, and they've actually reached the top of the stairwell now. How cool does that look? And right there, guys, concludes our tour, Dougie and Eb's tour of the old Gosford Brisbane Water City Council chambers. And like I've been alluding to through a lot of the video, you might be watching these and might be inspired to go and check these places out. Please do not. They are extremely dangerous. All of the entrances have been now sealed completely, and we do believe they're signposted. So I'll leave you with, I can't really tell and didn't want to film what happened next, but I think you guys can see that these places are being monitored by security and Gosford police. And since our exploration there in January 2023, someone has actually come past and completely bolted shut Marketplace. It's actually completely sealed up now with colour bond and steel, and there is no way of getting into that. And here is that footage. This is actually courtesy of my mum, Rhonda Vickery, and possibly my sister, it sounds like, in the background. I was at work and actually got a email saying Gosford abandoned buildings. I went, oh no, they've head in there. They just did a lap around in the car and shot some video for me, because they could see that the abandoned building has now been completely welded shut. So thanks for the footage, Mum. I may need to lend you one of my gimbals, but I think it's a great first start. Thanks for contributing to the channel. So that's a wrap from Abandoned Gosford, guys. What we hope this video inspires is a little bit more awareness that some of the bad decisions that have been made in Gosford, and maybe just do something. Look up your local preservation society, join your preservation society, ask your next electorate in terms of what they're going to do to preserve Gosford. Even as I'm editing this, I think I've said in the video that the Monty's 2.0 is just shutting down. I won't mention the building because it's got a current tenant in it. There is also current plans to slice straight through a heritage listed building in Gosford to make way for high rises. That sort of stuff is going to keep happening until the residents of Gosford actually just wake up and do something. There is a lot of history in Gosford. There are great memories that the Coasties have got of growing up in Gosford in the 70s, 80s and 90s. But if they can't get a council in that's going to be held to account and make some good decisions, they're in the best interest of some of the preservation, at least of Gosford, then I don't know what it's going to resemble in 20 years. So thanks for tuning in, guys. This is actually just a one-off. No, we will not be airing any more urban exploration or abandonment videos. If you join us next month, we will resume our regular scheduling of 6 p.m. Friday night, and that will be back to our regular mine exploring content. So thanks for tuning in. If you're from Gossy, g'day. Hope you enjoyed this video. And to all our regular viewers, we will see you next month. Thanks for tuning in.
There's someone sleeping there. Yeah.
Oh dear.
The police. Dad.